All right. So, welcome, Let's Play community. I'm Kristen Kalina from Mastermind Adventures. This is my friend, longtime friend, old friend. I hate to use that word.
All right.
Lloyd Lamarre.
Getting personal.
Lloyd is a teacher and a coach and an incredible dad and all kinds of. He's the man about town, and I'm really excited to be able to interview him. He teaches a lot of classes with us here at Mastermind, usually over the summer because he is a real actual teacher during the
I just
school
don't
year.
play one on television.
But I try to steal him as often as possible because he's just incredibly gifted and talented with the kids. The kids always respond really well to his classes because of his approach, and that's why I thought he would be a great person to interview for this community, to kind of talk about offline activities and things that he's found as a dad or as an instructor, as a coach that work best with kids. So why don't you talk a little bit about your background to start with and a little bit about you.
All right. Well, I've been teaching since 1997. I actually started out as an elementary school teacher, and now I teach high school mathematics. I have a degree in English, and I'm certified to teach mathematics from kindergarten up to high school level.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty big gap. It's a long story. But what got me into teaching, it was that another teacher pointed out that I have an ability to communicate very difficult things very succinctly.
Yeah.
And many times I'd be kind of like the assistant teacher in class and things like that. And so, but now as a been around for a long time, I've watched education kind of morph into something, and there are aspects of it that aren't as healthy as I would like. So I work really hard to kind of bring balance. I think all students, all children should have an academic balance, but also a physical balance, a mental balance.
Yep.
I think if you gravitate too far into any of those directions, that lack of balance, I don't think is as healthy as it could be. So, and I know parents as a whole are looking for that. They want their
Right.
children. Now, when I think of athletics, I don't think you necessarily have to play baseball or
Right.
football or something like that. But I think you should have something physical.
Right.
Be it yoga or tai chi or. It doesn't necessarily have to be, organized sports or your classic. And I think people get lost with that. And also as an educator, I'm looking for students to understand their value.
Right.
A lot of times in my math class, I'll take a tangent and I will, speak to young people about why they're important. And really help them to understand that they're valuable. And I think a lot of times with our very Twitter-focused, Instagram, way of looking at things, people miss out on their value. And I think as a global community, we've seen a lot of damage there. And a lot of our students isolate themselves because they don't think they matter.
Wow.
And I don't believe that. So I'm always looking to encourage, I'm always looking to draw people out, sometimes to their discomfort, but I just think it's important to be as well-rounded as possible. And everyone's individual uniquenesses, all right, are important.
Yeah.
So just because you don't like basketball doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just
Right.
means you don't like basketball.
Right.
But you spend hours running. Like, I don't like running. That's like anti-me. That's like, I run like a bag of sand anyways. So it's like not on my list of things. But there's a series of things that I enjoy. And it's good to find other communities of people who enjoy those things, who have even diverse backgrounds. But so we're different, come from all these different places, but we like this, this silly little thing over here, so we can join up around it and kind of, be that,
Find common ground.
exactly, have
Yeah.
that commonality. We're able to work on it together, despite the different places we come from, and so on
Right.
and so forth.
Right. Yeah. So you've been a teacher for how many years?
Let's see here. Oh wow, I'm feeling really old right now. 18 as far as traditional classroom,
Yeah.
and over 20
Wow.
Because I in between being a teacher, I worked as a full-time minister,
Right.
and continued teaching in a different way.
Right.
That way. So I've been a teacher since
As long as
19. Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say over 25 years, because I went to work in the ministry right out of college,
Right.
and so that was 1994. Oh wow, I feel so old. Oh my god! All right, so yeah, I've been teaching for a long time.
And you've got 4 kids of your own.
Yes, so I have one in one in college, one in high school, one in junior high, and one in diapers.
Yeah.
Because my wife and I also do foster care, and we're looking to adopt our youngest.
Right.
You know, and I think the other thing that's prompted me as a school teacher is being a parent,
Yeah.
being a dad. You know, my parents had their difficulties when it came to rearing us, and a lot of those, those lessons, those indirect lessons, I look to make sure that I bestow on my kids. So, first of all, as a dad, being around, being present, fighting to be interested in things that I may not be necessarily interested in, but I'm going to find a way, be supportive and be there, and then read up and learn and make myself uncomfortable. Because I think in those situations when I'm not the expert, my kids get to be the expert, and so there are times I'll ask for their help, and they're realizing, oh, Daddy can learn too, and I always put myself in a position to learn from my children, and so that's always been, I think that's helpful to them, humbling for me, because I need sometimes a lethal dose of humility, but it works with my kids, and then and so as a dad, that's I believe that's my greatest work, is just to make sure that my children are supported, and so I have my oldest is almost 19, and he still asks for input about particular things. And, Dad, how do I do this? And because he wrestled, in high school, and I wrestled in high school, and I coached. Actually, I've coached even longer than I've been teaching, I think.
Right.
So,
Right.
Him getting input on, all right, what's the best thing to do in this situation, and then for me to ask, all right, what do you think about this? I was going to show this move to this kid. What do you think? And get input from him. So the feedback is great. My middle son is an actor. Incredible actor. But for us to have the conversations and to ask him, how did you get into that? You got into that emotional place really fast. What do you do? And he discussed how he finds things he can tap into. My daughter, child 3, is like an engineer, and she's a writer, and she's just amazing. So she and I have talked for hours about ideas that she had, and we'll discuss, what about this, what about that, and I'll ask, all right, what's the origin story of your character, and just so she can flesh it out, and encouraging her to write things down. So now she has her journals all over the house, and things that she was writing things down. And William, he's the baby.
The easy one now.
But he's starting to show, and I think because he has great examples with his older, siblings, he's starting to, want to keep up with them. So even watch this 2-year-old start to identify letters in the alphabet, numbers, and very strong-willed little kid, but he kind of knows this is what I want to do. So all right. So even being supportive with the 2-year-old. So
is it different now? Because I know we had kids. So Lloyd and I have known each other since we were in our 20s, early 20s. We've known each other a long time, and I have our older 2 kids are the same age, and then I stopped having kids, but he kept going. So he's got a couple more kids. But is it different, like raising your little one? Like, is it different being a dad after having been a dad as a young person, and now as this golden age that we are, like now kind of looking at parenting? Is it different? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is it a different experience now that you've been through
a little bit, only because now being older, I have to be more efficient because I do not have the energy that I had when I, like almost 20 years ago.
That's fair, yeah.
So I've become more efficient, but the beauty of it is now that I have these older helpers, it's good for them to all right, and I have to tell them, I need you to go outside and run with them.
Yeah.
All right, Dad, and they go out and they run. Now, before that was my job. I was the one who went out and ran with them.
I remember.
You know, yeah, exactly. So, but for them now, and it's helped them to be responsible and sensitive, and you know, to ask the right questions, and you know, so is it different? Yeah, but I think our mission statement hasn't changed. In the sense of we're trying to build, you know, children that are confident, that are aware, that are intelligent, that are mindful of others. We're still looking to do the same things. How we get to the goal has adjusted because I've realized I need more help. You know, and then to even have, you know, my children say things that I said to, you know, my wife. You know, we might need to let them work this out on their own. Like my oldest son, William's crying. You gonna let him work that out? I'm like, yeah. You gonna let him work that out? I'm like, wow.
Oh, that's so funny.
But to see how these things are translated, you know, down to them, and now they're using them. You know, so. So
you've been in teaching for a while. How has teaching changed over the years? Like, are the students there, because you're teaching in high school now, right? What are they facing different challenges now than they did when you first started teaching? Is it a different battle, I guess, for them, or how has that changed over time?
I think that's a great question. It's very multifaceted as I think about it. So, first of all, education has changed in the sense that the focus on what is important has changed. I believe education originally, and I say originally to me, we're talking about the last 25 years, was more balanced. It was more about well-roundedness, the overt leaning towards standardized testing and things like that. I think we were building better test takers, but we're building less creative people.
Okay.
It's that lack of creativity. I think that's our biggest danger.
Right.
When students lose their ability to be creative, to think outside the box, they become mentally institutionalized almost, and they think this is as far as I can go. Without that access of imagination, you just start becoming a cookie cutter to some degree, and you become like everybody else. And so, and I think as a result of that, I think we've also found some problems where if someone now thinks outside the box, they're bullied, they're teased, there's some name calling because you're not fitting into the status quo that we have lined up here. And now with the ability to get information, I always, every so often I tease my students where I said, you guys have access to more information more readily than any other, generation in history, and
we've got something very exciting happening. We don't know what it is, but it's really exciting. I'm sorry.
But they spend time watching cats fall out of trees. So,
right.
And so it's like...
Oh, yeah.
And so I think this generation has the opportunity to be more distracted than, my generation did. But my generation played a lot more. We played for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. We built things, we broke things, we took things apart. We got yelled at for taking things apart, But now, we actually had conversations with people face to face, eye to eye.
Yes.
We weren't always on video games and things like that. So I think with all the technological advances that this generation has, I still think they are. The technology is still underused. I cannot tell you how many times I get asked these almost trivia questions by students, and I'm like, but you're sitting in front of a computer. So, but now the challenge with that is, and I think we're becoming more aware of it, there's still a lot of bad information out there. So one of the things I've had to teach my students, and I'm a math teacher, is to teach them how to fact check, to do research. But this generation has gotten so, it has to be true. It's on the internet. Coming to find out that's not true, and there's a lot of fakeness out there, a lot of things that aren't accurate. But And as a result of that lack of accuracy, you know, there are arguments that are, you know, happening and, you know, going about because people, they won't check,
Right.
you know.
Yep.
Well, somebody said this, it must be true. Like,
Right. Especially if it reaffirms what they already think.
exactly.
Yeah.
And even the way search engines work, they look, they're designed to figure out what you're interested in,
Right.
not what's necessarily going to advance your intelligence.
Right.
But then as a result of that, that narrow searchness, I guess, that's out there, people become more narrow-minded. So you have this amazing ability to get even great information, but you don't ever check anything, you don't ever research anything, you don't ever challenge anything.
Wow.
They're trying to break the record.
Oh,
They just
okay.
need more hands.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's just, it's
Yeah,
louder than it
it's-
usually
it's-
is.
no.
But that's all right.
Now they're playing. That's
learning.
important,
They're learning.
you know?
That's how they learn. What they've done is they've taken, it looks like some kind of slime, and
Yep.
they're trying to see how far
Or
that
you
they
can
can
stretch
stretch it.
I think
And
that
they're-
last one
and
was
you know
almost
what?
20 feet.
They're very courteously doing that on my linoleum and not
Yes.
on the carpet, so that's actually very thoughtful.
Yeah, I know, right. Good children. Well done. You know?
This is
see-
Masterminds on Wednesday. This is
yeah,
how
but,
it is.
but
yeah.
that's my point.
Yeah.
So here you have 4 kids who,
Yep.
and they're problem solving, but they
They
don't
are.
realize that they're problem solving.
Right.
So the
So
goal
much
is,
learning in that.
how far can I stretch this out?
Right.
There's a cooperation
Yep.
that's there, but our present system doesn't encourage teamwork.
Right.
But the only time it does encourage teamwork is you have to be on an organized sports team.
Yes. Right.
And you have to sit at a desk at school. Every job I've ever had has always been collaboration.
Right.
So we tell students, if you collaborate with somebody, you're cheating. But then when you become an adult, then
You're
you can
expected
collaborate.
to, right?
Which
Which is a lot of the reason why we've developed a lot of our programs at
Correct.
Masterminds. You know, starting with Nerf and then using things like today we ran a Quidditch game, and I often tell people the activity itself is not as important as what you can teach them while they're doing
Exactly.
the activity.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it's kind of fun. That's one thing I do really. And I mean,
No.
we're here to
It
talk
works,
about you,
it
but
works.
it's really kind of, it's my favorite thing about watching the kids that come in here on Wednesdays is that they still have that, they have the time and the space to kind of explore and to learn a little bit.
Well, the
more
other part is,
old-fashioned way and more
see,
naturally.
they're having an argument right now,
Yeah.
which they don't get to do that.
Yeah.
You know, no, you can yell at
Yeah.
somebody via text. And
Right.
But they're able to read inclination. They're
Yeah.
able to read people's faces.
Yeah.
And they're working it out.
Yeah.
You know, they're coming to an end.
Yeah.
They're solving a problem. They're using their words.
Yeah.
And there's so many things there.
Yeah.
You know.
Very cool.
Even one of them, she's so passionate about what they're doing. She got emotional.
Yeah.
But the rest of the group didn't berate her for that.
Right.
They realized, oh, wait a minute, maybe we need to figure something else out.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty. That's
Right.
you know.
Right.
um,
So cool. So as someone who's been teaching for a long time, and now there's all these things that are supposed to help our students with
Right.
the technology. So how do you get around that? I mean, I know you're kind of encouraging them to fact
Right.
check. You're encouraging them to do their
Yeah.
research. What kind of strategies maybe could parents use with their own kids at home to kind of help them when they get stuck, maybe even if they are in screens. I mean, we've talked about, this group is all about trying to help kids
Right.
find alternatives to screens, but screens are not always bad,
Correct.
right? And
Correct.
a lot of times they're being used for educational purposes and things like that. So, so if a child gets stuck at home, what kind of strategies might they
So
be
when
able
you
to
say
use as a
stuff
parent?
academically, or you mean just
Academically, using a game, using, in any way to kind of help support or redirect their kids.
well, I think
Yeah.
part of that is definitely being connected. Definitely being willing to have the conversations, being willing to talk to your kids, because sometimes it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I had found some data years ago where it said that teachers spend more quality time with students than parents do,
Oh, wow.
on average.
Right.
And being a math teacher, that word average is very poignant.
Yeah.
teachers will spend about a week, about 7 hours of quality time.
Right.
Parents may get in a week 7 minutes.
Right. Well, because more parents are working,
Right.
right? You got to work to support your family, and
Right.
so it's those stolen moments. You
Right.
know what I mean?
And it's the distraction of the game or whatever else. Now, I have found one way to kind of unlock your kids is to sit down next to them and play with them. It might mean you might need to learn how to play Mario Kart.
Right.
You
Right.
might need to learn how to play 2K.
Right.
You might need to
Minecraft, yeah.
Right, and have conversations as you're going through this. To develop opportunities to discuss why do you like this game so much? Why is what fascinates you about this? And so there have been times where, and putting myself in the position of the learner, having my children teach me, how to do this. Now they're laughing at me, of course, so I'm nowhere near as good, at it as they are. But they're in a position where they're like, oh, wait a minute, Dad's interested. I think helping your kids get unstuck is always checking why is it valuable, but what's more valuable, and understanding that it's a tool.
Right.
The moment it becomes an idol or it becomes something that so much of their time is absorbed by, but they can't think through the fact that this is a tool. It's not necessarily a lifestyle sitting in front of a video game. I don't think it's necessarily the same way you can't play basketball all day.
Right.
You can't, even the
Moderation.
professional athletes don't even play all day. They take a break.
Right,
There's an off season,
Yeah.
So I guess getting unstuck is remaining in a position to have those conversations, being mindful, being thoughtful, being being ready to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there like, what?
Yeah.
And then you're still looking at the control, and they're, and you're getting barked at by your kids because,
Yeah.
Daddy, you're killing us. I'm like, I'm trying to, but put yourselves in and then take a break. Let's take a break. We're gonna go for a walk.
Right.
Right.
Well, that was my next question. So what kind of things do you do with your kids when they've been going for too long and it's time to take a break?
Well, that's the other thing is to create to create. When I've seen it's gone a little bit over, they might mean all right, we're gonna ration this out, especially walking into the summer. There's no video games after midnight.
Right.
Here's your block.
Right.
There's other things to do. I have older boys, so they're working.
Yeah.
Helping them find jobs.
Yep.
There's plenty of stuff to do around the house.
Yeah.
Here's our screen time.
Yeah.
And we partition it. From 1 to 2, and then all right from 5 to 6, or after dinner. But we partition it, and we're gonna go to the Museum of Science. We're gonna go to the Children's Museum. We're gonna go into Boston. We're gonna walk around. We're gonna explore. We're going to let's use our screens to figure out where we're gonna.
Yeah.
So showing it as a tool.
Right.
Going to parks. Playing, building with Legos, breaking things. Especially people who have young children. Legos or blocks have to be one of the best ways to introduce mathematics.
Yeah.
That's why, in a lot of ways, young men tend to be a little bit better at geometry because
We hand them blocks.
they hand them blocks before they get anything else. So one of the first things I handed my daughter,
Yeah.
there were blocks.
Right.
So she played with blocks early on
Yeah.
because it helps develop spatial awareness and
Yeah.
things like that. But then, so we're going to build something. We're going to play with puzzles.
Right.
We're going to read. We're going to, and we diversify what it is we're doing. Maybe they pick the book.
Right.
I read a page, you read a page. You read it to me. At one point, my daughter was, reading to me at night before she went to bed.
Yeah.
And many times I'd be,
Honestly.
Daddy. What? I'm done with the book.
Yeah,
Go to bed, Daddy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's ushered me out of the room because
Right.
I fell asleep as she was reading.
Right.
So yeah, those are some things, but I think you have to diversify.
Yeah.
If we make screens taboo,
Right. They're just speaking it right.
but if it's a tool,
Yeah.
if we appreciate them,
Right.
then our children will appreciate them.
Right.
If we make it this thing that should not be touched, or then it becomes harder.
Right.
Because we're not around our, especially when you have older kids, you're not around them, 24/7.
Right.
And I remember what I was like when my parents weren't around. So
Yeah.
so I'm like,
Yeah.
we'd follow the rules more,
When they're home.
when they're home. When they weren't home, like,
Yeah.
it's Vegas.
Yeah. So a lot of parents are also looking for, I mean, I know we've talked about a lot of things that we can do with our kids, but a lot of parents are like, yeah, that's great, but I have to clean the house, get some dishes done, cook,
Right.
work, whatever it is that we have to do.
Right.
So what are great, like, independent activities that you can encourage kids to do, or like kind of go-to strategies that might be engaging for kids while mom gets or dad gets some other stuff done?
Well, I mean, we just did discuss reading, but my daughter was she was making podcasts.
Oh, I love that.
And things like that. And so now it was using the screen, but it was using it usefully.
Right.
Or she was, we'd gotten her we were looking, she was trying to make little movies and things like that.
Yeah.
But it was using the screen, but it was so creative.
Turned around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
because you got all that creative problem solving, you still have critical thinking going on, you still have the creativity of either writing something or coming up with something off the top of your head.
And then the follow up.
Right.
How did that end? What are you doing? Who are you working with? And she was able to use the screen. She was able to get a team of friends together, and they would work on these things, together. And so she wanted to start her own little YouTube, and they were going to do these things, and so now the challenge of other things to do. I think it depends on the parents, but I would caution parents. Not necessarily to want to regulate everything. Otherwise, when does the student get to breathe a little bit? When does the student get to,
So don't schedule every single minute, right?
No. Because, Stephen Covey says at some point you should rest.
Yeah.
You at some point you have to sharpen the saw. Yeah. We sharpen the saw during rest.
Right.
So to have every minute thing, that's not important. I don't think that's healthy either for parent or student. So sometimes you just have downtime. And you're gonna do whatever that is. I don't always think that's screen time necessarily, but it might mean, you're gonna call a friend. You're going to you'll go for a walk. Maybe you're gonna go play outside. Oh, look, we have swings. Go swing. Just something. I just if you over regiment, then I think the potential to stifle creativity exists there too.
So what are some of the strategies that you use when you're developing a program? Like you're running some programs for us this summer, helmet building and some breastplate building, engineering. But you've also run things in the past for us, like you're doing the Da Vinci Code, the Young Inventors Workshop. So as you're developing, and we did, of course, the War Machines Workshop, which we're not doing this year, but it was amazing.
That was fun.
So when you're developing something, what are the things you're thinking about as a teacher who wants to get the most out of their kids, who wants to kind of provide some, get their juices flowing, get that creativity working, get some of the team building going on? Like, what are the things you're thinking about?
Well, so first of all, I consider the list of skills I want to teach. But then I realized there has to be a certain level of buy-in. And so what I like to do, and I don't know if I've coined this phrase, but I'm going to throw it out there, where it's camouflaged curriculum.
Okay.
I want to teach math. Yep. It's best that my students don't know they're learning math.
Yeah.
Because if they, for a moment, suspect that they're, that there might be some education happening, they become resistant.
Right.
But if they realize that this is fun and that they're in charge, so like in the helmet building class, it's a geometry class, but they don't realize it's a geometry class.
Right.
But it's physical geometry, and then we slowly even introduce multi-modal, curricular things, because we discuss science.
Right.
We're discussing the history. Why did the helmets, even need to be built in the beginning? Where do we see the first helmets? So we're having these conversations now, because it's this low-key, unassuming conversation. a student is more likely to retain because it happened in this casual, meaningful, environment. And so, oh yeah, the first helmets were developed by the Incas, and this
Right.
is when they were, and here's why they did it, and it had nothing to do with war, it had to do with sport. They're like, really? And then we're just having these conversations, and so now I'm in a position now where if I give homework, it isn't homework.
Right.
It's research for, all right, well, if we're going to build helmets, we start talking about period pieces.
Right.
Then they're like, oh, they go back and they're going to look to these things. So I think about the skills I want to teach, but I think about the most creative way that I would want to learn it.
Yeah.
And then I will create a lesson around that. And so, and then I've caught myself researching something, not because I wanted to learn more math, but because I wanted to learn more about whatever that subject was. And so, and then helping students realize, well, at one point, people had to bend metal to build these things. How do you do that when you don't have a furnace or a press or a machine? How would you go about that? So now they're thinking, oh, wait a minute. I know I'm just using craft foam here, but if this was metal, this would be harder. What would I do?
Yeah.
So some of the principles tend
So
to be
even some chemistry, actually. 'Cause
A little
you're
bit,
talking
a little
about like how molecules change as we eat them.
exactly, and then
Yep.
heating something up. So, but we even introduced that for some of the EVA foam, you have to heat it up to make it more malleable.
Yes.
If this was metal, we'd be doing the same thing, but of course,
Right.
higher temperatures and things like that. Because we're trying to get this into the shape that we're looking for. But then to have those conversations, and part of it is, and it's trusting the students are willing to learn.
Yeah.
But people, I think, especially students, children are more willing to learn when they're in control of the learning. I don't look to micromanage that learning.
Right.
And I also don't look to micromanage their success or their failure. All I'm looking to do is to create an opportunity for them to learn more. Like you mentioned that War Machines class.
Yeah.
There was a student in class who was, I'm going to build a trebuchet. I'm like, great. Now, it was possible.
Yeah.
Right? And he wouldn't let it go.
Right. Right.
And I realized that with the materials we had
Yeah.
and with the idea that he was thinking of,
Yeah.
there was no way he could build that.
Right.
But for me to stop him and go, nope, ain't gonna happen, isn't gonna ever work.
Right.
Here's why, da 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 da. That information was useless.
Right.
But in the class was what? It was 5 days.
Yeah.
By day 2, and he was a really smart kid.
Yeah.
At day 2, he realized, oh wait a minute, I don't have the right fulcrum to pull this off.
Right.
So he looked at me and was like, what do I do? I go, you've got a lot of other guys who've built theirs.
Right.
Why don't you collaborate and use some of their ideas? He's like,
Right.
that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was able to restructure what he started with
Yeah.
and still ended up with a catapult
Right.
at the end of it.
Right.
But he learned from that opportunity.
Right.
Then we had
Because we learn from our failures.
Exactly.
It's the best
but what a-
teacher
yeah,
in the world.
But,
is our
but, what a,
failure.
but what a great place to
Yeah.
come where failure is acceptable.
Right.
And
Well, it's not at a huge cost either.
correct.
Right.
But well, for them the cost was time.
Right.
Because they didn't know what we were doing on Friday. They knew that things had to be finished by Thursday.
Right. Right.
And so then on Friday when they stormed the castle,
Yeah.
Blackwater Castle, but then there we did the team building.
Yeah.
So I let them fail individually,
Right.
and they were getting very frustrated. They
Yeah.
tried to storm the castle 5 times.
Right.
4 times they failed.
Right.
The 5th time when I went, all right, I'll let you guys work together, and I got to be the arrogant king of
Right,
Blackwater
right,
Castle. But it's probably not going to matter. As a team, as a group, as a unit,
Right.
they thwarted
killed
that
it,
castle like with almost no problem.
Right.
And so there we were able to do a little team building.
Right.
But then they were working together and they realized, oh, wait a minute, my catapult can shoot from a distance. But your catapult is very accurate from up here.
Yeah.
And now they were working on strategies
Right.
together to defeat the castle without changing the original objective. So now they're working together to towards a common goal. And they were very successful.
Right.
But they had to lose in
Yep.
order to learn that lesson,
Right, right.
and it's so for me to manage their frustration just enough, because I knew if they sieged it a 5th time and
Yeah.
failed, they would have been destroyed. You know,
They have to have some success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But eventually they would have realized, wait a minute, what if we just did this together?
Yeah.
Then they would have, and that was the thing, them coming together. When I broke them up in their little groups and they just couldn't do it, they were just like, and they realized how difficult it was.
Yeah.
You know, but the idea of working together and to have a group that was so diverse.
Mm-hmm.
My only regret is that I wish we had had more students in the class because they would have learned so much from one another.
Yeah.
And we had students in that first 4 days who were angry with each other and had their little conflicts, but when it came time to come together, they were able to push all that stuff off to the side, achieve the objective and get it done. So as I'm building things like that, I'm trying to consider, all right, how can I master this? What are the best questions? And also, it isn't important for me to have all the answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Students were coming back, day 3, day 4, and going, oh, I went online and I saw here's a better way for me to make my catapult more accurate, to do this and to do that, and they were doing, so, you'd speak to the parents, they were like, they went home and they researched for 4 more hours.
Right.
They left there and went into the library and got a book on catapults, and they were reading these books. And so, because they were interested, they were not consuming and getting all this knowledge and things like that that were very beneficial to them. But
it was relevant.
It was relevant, but there wasn't this pressure from the grown-ups. You will learn, and it was because they were interested. You can ride that horse forever. As long as they're interested, you can take that as far as you'd like to, because they're interested. Once they've bought in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we find that too. Yeah, a lot with our programs. I mean, it's a lot of times why we will have a theme that we know that kids are already, into, because suddenly you've got a kid who doesn't exercise and now he's exercising, or you've got a kid who is not really interested in math and now he's interested in math.
Exactly.
It's similar, similar thing. Yeah.
And camouflaging that curriculum.
Right.
And most curriculum, when it's really done, like when you camouflage things correctly, you're going cross-curricular.
Yeah.
So in 1 2-hour session, we've done history, math, science, engineering, and then later I can go back and go, all right, I want you to write a background on your character that's going to be wearing this helmet. They sat down and wrote 2, 3, 4 paragraphs of backstory to go with their character. And so now what have I done? I've crossed all of it. Then when we bring in the actual play and use of the helmet, now we've gotten to the physical part. Now we've gone beyond curriculum, the intellectual curriculum. Now we've gotten to the physical curriculum. And what have we done? We've created a well-rounded person. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Just like that.
Yeah.
It's easy. So just do that.
Yeah, Jiffy Pop learning.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we've got a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Let's see. What is your favorite recommended book, either as a parent or as a teacher, or both? For parents.
Book for parents. That's hard.
Or a blog, or like.
Well, I think this is gonna sound silly, but for us, a lot of it was the Dr. Seuss stuff, because it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So there was the places you'll go.
Yeah.
We'd read that to our kids, and so we're doing 2 things. We're being silly.
Yeah.
But then we're teaching them to think outside the box, and you had explained that they were going to go through some trouble and some challenges and different things like that. Just reading in general. For me to pick one thing.
I know, it's hard.
But it was just comic books.
Yeah.
My boys weren't really into it. I know I was when I was younger, into the comic books, but then later, when like Marvel pretty much put my childhood on display in the cinema, I was able to reference, oh, that's the Silver Surfer, he appears the first time, and then I'm like, Daddy, how do you know that? Oh, when I was a kid, I read all these comic books, so to be able to reintroduce that back to my and again, it's a very unassuming way to read.
Yeah, actually, I had a struggling reader, and graphic novels,
Yeah.
because they've got graphic novels for all kinds of different things
Yep.
now. I think he got really into the Odyssey graphic novel. Loved like the classic, Homer's Odyssey.
Right.
But it was in graphic novel form, and he ate it up, and it actually helped him learn to read. So,
And so but that's camouflage curriculum.
right.
And because a lot of times you have the artwork that's connected, and then it just makes things a little bit more richer. But
Right.
I've watched students like there has graphic novels of Wolverine,
Yeah, yeah.
Spawn.
Yeah.
They've taken the classics like Moby Dick and turned those into more
Yeah.
graphic novel types, and they're more consumable because I think students today are stimulated on faceted learning. It's
Yeah.
not enough just to sit in front of something without a graphic, without a picture. Now you're watching people learning to read, watching videos because the captions below are
That's actually
and
very helpful.
And that's another way.
You should do that if you have a struggling learner. Turn on the captions if you don't already know that
Yeah.
tip, but turn on the captions for your kids while you're watching television shows,
And they'll
because it really does.
And it just reinforces it. I think it's one of the reasons with the 2-year-olds, he'll watch his little show, but we got the subtitles going.
Right.
And he's just seeing these words again and again and again.
Right.
So now we're going in the grocery stores and he's yelling out 8. And I turn around, we're in aisle 8. Or he'll see something on my shirt and go A, and he's 2.
Yeah.
But I know it's because we repeat this stuff and we go
Right.
through these little things and we read to them and they have the alphabet and
Right.
just teach them to be able to sit down and practice stillness. Just all right, let's read.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. All right. So, how do people get in touch with you if they have questions?
through you, no.
Through me?
Yeah. Well, I guess I can be emailed at Lloyd Lamarre at gmail.com.
Okay.
I'm also working on classes through Mastermind.
Yep. So you can find him here, and we've got his stuff is live right now. You can go and book it if you're interested in your children having classes with him. So we'll put that link in the comments.
Yeah, and at some point we're looking to build something a little bit bigger than the present system that's in place as far as education as a whole. But,
For sure.
But yeah, I guess no.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with
Well,
us
thanks
today.
for having me.
He's one of my favorite people, so it's fun to have him here. So if you are not watching this in our Let's Play group, you should go and join. It is on Facebook. If you look up Let's Play supporting screen time alternatives, you should be able to find us, or through Mastermind Adventures Facebook page. It's the group community that is linked there. You can also find us on our website, mastermindadventures.com, and you could email us at info@mastermindadventures if you have any questions, and if there's somebody that you want us to reach out to, that you want us to interview. We love having these conversations. We love bringing this to you. We hope that you found this helpful. I found this helpful. It's always interesting to hear different people, especially experts in their field, how they, what their processes are and how they, what they find important in working with kids. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you again.
All right. Bye, guys.